Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Nihongo Master podcast. I'm your host Azra, and for today's episode, we're actually heading out of Japan. I know, it sounds a bit strange, but hear me out. We're still going to look at Japanese festivals, just not in Japan. Yep, there are actually dozens of them happening outside of Japan. There might even be one in your country. This is all thanks to the Japanese Diaspora. We'll get into that too, don't worry. The Japanese are everywhere in the best way possible, whether it's for travel or permanently settling down. It makes my Japanese language skills worth so much more. Anyway, we'll briefly take a look at how all these global Japanese Matsuri came about, as well as hone into the top 2 regions with the biggest population of Nikkeijin, North and South America. Are we ready? So let's talk a bit about the Japanese diaspora. This refers to Japanese immigrants from Japan and their descendants residing in a country outside of Japan. The earliest Japanese emigration was recorded as early as the 15th century. In about the 18th century, there were sponsored emigration programs by the government to relieve pressure from overpopulation. There were even imin-kaisha, immigration companies, sponsored by the government to keep Nikkei well-mannered while abroad. Anyway, now there are about 3.8 million Nikkei living in the adopted countries, according to the Association of Nikkei and Japanese Abroad. Now, I've used the word Nikkei a couple of times now. Let's discuss that. Nikkei, or Nikkeijin, is used to refer to Japanese people and their descendants who have emigrated from Japan. We can zoom in further with the terminology. Issei refers to first generation Nikkeijin. Nissei refers to second generation. Sansei is third generation. And Yonsei is fourth. You probably get the idea if you know your Nihongo numbers. Sometimes, Nikkei are often referred to as hafu, or half Japanese people. I personally hear this term more often than the former, where the former is associated with a bigger meaning, I think. But anyway, the first Japanese emigration was to other parts of Asia, as early as the 15th century to the Philippines. Throughout the next couple of centuries, more and more Japanese people established themselves in countries like Thailand, Taiwan, and China. The last one now stands in third place of having the most number of Nikkeijin, approximately 140,000 people. From the 1868 Meiji Restoration, we saw more and more people migrating from Japan to the Americas. We're not going to a whole history lesson here. You can read Wikipedia for that. Long story short, the United States now stands at number 2 with almost 1.5 million Nikkei, and Brazil at number 1 with over 2 million Nikkei. And ever since the 1980s, because of the 3 K jobs, Kitsui, Kitanai, and Kiken, difficult, dirty, and dangerous, the Japanese government began granting visas to ethnic Japanese folks from South America. And nowadays, especially because of COVID, I've met so many half Japanese folks here. Okay, we've come to the end of that history lesson. Here's a quick vocab recap. Nikkei or Nikkeijin, Japanese immigrants. Kitsui, difficult. Kitanai, dirty. Kiken, dangerous. Hey, when you think about it, it can also be the 3D jobs. Okay, so we're finally going to look into Japanese festivals abroad. Let's first take a look at second place, United States. Japanese Americans can also be referred to as Nikkei Amerikajin. Following the Meiji Restoration, Japanese immigrants brought their culture, food, and heritage to the US. The place with the largest number of Japanese Americans are in Honolulu, Hawaii, followed by Los Angeles, California. But trust that it's not only limited to those 2 cities and states, because Japanese festivals in the US are nationwide. From Arizona to Washington, you're going to find some. In fact, the largest festival of Japanese culture in all of the US is the Sakura Matsuri in Washington, D.C. Every year in spring, the festival goes full on as soon as the sakura turns pink. You get your typical Japanese Matsuri vibes here. Everything from street stalls known as yatai to performances you see in Japan itself. There's also a marketplace that looks just like Ginza in Tokyo, because it specializes in handcrafted goods from that very city. There are also traditional Japanese cultural events like tea ceremony, traditional painting, and traditional games. Oh, I remember when I said that California has the second largest Japanese American population? Sometimes, some people joke that California is the 48th prefecture of Japan because of it. Anyway, in Los Angeles, California, there's a neighborhood called Little Tokyo, and since 1934, there's a 9-day-long festival called Nisei Week, organized by the Japanese American Culture and Community Center. This festival, usually held in August, has an opening ceremony that's invitation only, following a few other activities like a grand parade through the neighborhood. Each year, there are different special guests. In the few days, there are martial art demonstrations like judo, exhibitions, food and drink stalls, of course, and even a coronation ball, for the crowning of a Nisei Week Japanese festival queen. The queen, or Jō in Japanese, and the court represent the event worldwide with a chance to travel to Japan. Ending off the festival is a big dance where the public is invited to join the rehearsals. Now, those are only 2 of the dozens of Japanese festivals in the US, but a lot of them have similar culture sharing events and fun activities. Here's a quick vocab recap. Nikkei Amerikajin, Japanese Americans. Yatai, food stalls. Judo, one type of Japanese martial arts. Jō, queen. You can also say Jō-sama. By the way, if you haven't checked out our official website yet, why not give it a browse? At Nihongo Master, we offer efficient Japanese lessons that are quick, easy, and fun for Japanese language learners of all levels, from beginners to advanced. Our smart tools will assist you in areas where you need a little bit of a push and congratulate you on the ones you've aced. With a community of over 50,000 Japanese students, you're not alone on your learning journey. Make new friends and improve together with our point system, collecting points as you go along. Ask away any questions you have on our group discussion pages. There's sure to be others as well as our Japanese instructors that are quick to answer. You can also take Nihongo Master with you on the go and learn Japanese as you trot the globe. Practical, right? Now, let's take a look at the number 1 country with the most Nikkei-jin of over 2 million, Brazil. Japanese Brazilians are also referred to as Nikkei Brazilian. The first Japanese who moved to Brazil was in 1908, and since the 1980s, a lot of Nikkei Brazilian has been returning home to Japan. And just like the US, there are tons of Japanese festivals in the country. The city of Curitiba, the largest city in the Brazilian state of Paraná, has had Japanese immigrants arriving since 1915. Most settled down between the states of Paraná and São Paulo, and both Curitiba and São Paulo have about the same proportion of Japanese descendants. In Curitiba, there are yearly festivals celebrating the Japanese culture. Haru Matsuri, to mean Spring Festival, Hana Matsuri, to mean Flower Festival, which celebrates the birth of Sakyamuni, Seto Matsuri, which is to honor the comic artist Claudio Seto, and Imin Matsuri, which is to celebrate the arrival of Japanese immigrants in Brazil. In São Paulo, I'm assuming there are tons more. There's one called São Paulo Festival do Japão, which just translates to Japan Festival in São Paulo. I'm not here to teach Spanish, so I'll skip the translations. This festival has been going on since 1998 to celebrate the years of Japanese immigration to Brazil, as well as spreading the Japanese culture, traditions, and knowledge. You get your performances, exhibitions, events, shops, and of course, yatai. The other big one is the Tanabata Matsuri, the Festival of the Stars. There's a couple in Japan too, but there's one in Sao Paulo too, in a neighborhood called Liberdade. The festival is based on a story where a couple became stars and could only meet once a year in the sky. Tanabata means evening of the 7th, so the festival is held usually on the 7th of July, sometimes in August for certain places. So just like in Japan, the festivals consist of food stalls, colorful kusudama, ornamental ball, made of paper floating in the wind, and bamboo branches in the streets where people can buy tanzaku, or color paper, to write wishes on and hang on these branches. I'd say it's pretty similar to the ones in Japan. So if you're on the other side of the world, you're pretty much going to be experiencing the same thing. Here's a quick vocab recap. Nikkei Brazilian, Japanese Brazilians. Imin, immigration. Haru, spring. Hana, flower. Tanabata literally translates to evening of the 7th, but also known as the Star Festival. Kusudama, ornamental ball. Tanzaku, colored paper made for wishes for Tanabata Festival. And there you have a brief history lesson on Japanese diaspora and the various Nihon Matsuri you can find in the top 2 countries with the biggest Nikkei population. Are you surprised that there are Japanese festivals outside of Japan? Would you attend one if there's one near you? Tell us your thoughts by commenting on social media platforms. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Also, head over to Nihongo Master blog if you're interested in reading about topics like these some more. And if you're keen on picking up some more Japanese for yourself, pop onto our official website, nihongomaster.com, to learn more. While you're at it, why not get yourself a subscription? Get a head start on your Nihongo journey with Nihongo Master. And thank you so much for listening in. Join me in the next one, where I'll be walking you down the avenue of Japan's rich culture. Mata ne!